Mr. Gustafson, please call forth your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am about to call forth my first witness. The testimony that you will receive will give you absolutely no doubt as to the qualities, both positive and negative, of my client, from which you will surely be able to determine whether or not my client is a possible person of interest to you. I now call forth my first witness, a character witness, as you would. Hello friends, I am Rob here in a new segment called Character Witness. This segment will involve us creating a character for a role-playing game and using what we learn from making that character to learn things about the game that the players will need to know. And we will also, at many instances within, look at rough areas, things that could be improved, potential house rules, and things to spice up your own game. This one that we are going over is a bit of an older one, but because of a conglomeration of online GMs, myself, the Fat Man GM, and GM Bloodworth, we are dipping our toes into the murky pool, which is the 1984 Twilight 2000, and what I have recently purchased, Twilight 2000, the second edition, which came out in 1990. We are going to make characters for both systems in two parts, and we will look at the differences between the two game systems, the improvements that were made, the rough areas that were filed off, and ways of reconciling the two systems together. I will be primarily working off of the PDF of the first edition, as I don't own it, but between the two we will cover what you need to know as a player so that you can decide, is this a game I'd like to play? Twilight 2000 is a post-apocalyptic real-world game set in a diverged timeline. In 1996 to 1997, open war broke out between the United States and Russia, and the whole political structure that had been built up during the Cold War era. Eventually, nuclear weapons were used, which caused serious damage to the primary nuclear powers. It also rained havoc around the rest of the world, in some places more than others. Some places were already pretty full of havoc to begin with. But it certainly makes life more complicated. The premise of the game is that you are members of a military unit who are caught in the time after the bombs have dropped. Therefore, you have guns, you have training, and you can be whatever you want, a force for order or a marauding warband in this new world. Generally, there's a lot of emphasis on military structure and military background. It certainly seems like a lot of the emphasis is on maintaining unit cohesion and accomplishing whatever goals that you set before you. The referee obviously will have some interesting scenarios involving this world. There's going to be a great deal of environmental hazards and radiation, as well as a crumbling infrastructure. The need to continually resupply yourself. Primarily, if you have a vehicle, you're going to need to have a still to create alcohol to fuel your vehicle. And, of course, a vanishing supply of ammunition. Finding caches becomes vital. So, buckle up. We are going to go over an exhaustive look at the character creation and details of Twilight 2000. I love making characters, and this is going to be no exception, but it might be a little more challenging. Generally, when I make up a character, I have a concept in mind that I'm shooting for. In this case, I do have a fairly firm concept. I want my character to be a farm boy who ran away from a future of farming to join the army, and I want him to be a ranger scout, so he's going to go into the Army Rangers. So, everything that you need to make the character is the worksheet, your final record sheet, 4 6-sided dice, a 10-sided die, and a pencil. So, we are going to use the 6-sided dice to generate your attributes first. There are 6 basic attributes. You have fitness, which is your general health and well-being. And it's your strength in proportion to your size. This actually is not a game stat. This is just to build your character, which is kind of interesting. You have agility, which is kind of your dexterity and overall hand-eye coordination. Your constitution, which is your health and stamina, so that's what's going to keep you on your feet in a world of radiation, bad food, and water. Your stature, which is how physically big you are, combined with that, that's going to tell you how strong you are with fitness and stamina or stature together. Intelligence is how much brain capacity you have, and education is how much education you've had in your time. Intelligence is important as you try to master certain skills. Education limits what you can start out with. If your character has poor education, you can't be like a doctor, for instance. By knowing this, we already know that we really want to have a good stature. We want our character to be a big, rangy farm boy, so we're going to favor that. And what favoring does is it allows you to average between what you actually roll and the maximum allowed, which is a 20. We're going to slight education. He's going to be homeschooled by farmers who didn't really care about how smart he was. So they cut corners and sent him out to the fields more often than he got to sit down behind a book. We determined that before we even roll dice. So this gives us some fine control over how our character is ultimately going to end up, which is an interesting concept, certainly. So we're going to try rolling, and we roll 4 6-sided dice and we subtract 4, which is going to give us a curve between 1. Technically, it's a possibility to get a 0 if you roll all 1s, because, 4 minus 4. But if you do that, you get a reroll. And so it's going to be an effective 1 to 20. If you roll all 6s, you get a 24 minus 4 is 20. The median average, each of these dice has normally a 3.5 average score. And if you subtract 1, as there are 4 dice and you're subtracting 4, each one is subtracted 1. That brings you down to a 2.5. Which, with 4 dice, gives you an average of 10. So you're going to have a bell curve generally, and it's going to be in similar fashion to, say, Dungeons & Dragons, that is based off of 3 6-sided dice. But you have an optimum range up to 20, minimum down to 1. So we're going to make our first rolls. And we rolled a 6, a 6, a 4, and a 1. Take away 4, and we end up with a 13, which is quite good. So our character is quite fit. Yay. Do it again for agility. Okay, this is where we're going to start to hurt a little bit. We had a 5, 2, 3, and a 1. Take away the 3 and the 1, and we're going to end up with 7. Our farm boy is a bit clumsy. That's possibly not good, but we'll see how that goes. Constitution, how healthy he is. We're hoping for high, because that's probably going to be very useful. And what do you know? We rolled a 6, a 6, a 5, and a 4. Take away the 4, that leaves us with 17 Constitution. Very good Constitution. Excellent. And we're going to roll again. That's going to give us more hit points, so anything that allows us to soak up more damage will be good. Now this is the one we're favoring. This is stature. So we're going to roll that. And it's probably a good thing that we're favoring it. We rolled a 6, a 3, a 2, and a 1. Take away the 3 and the 1. That leaves us with 8. Now we're going to round, or we're going to average between the 8 that we rolled and 20, the maximum that we could get. That's a difference of 12, so adding half of 12 is 6. Adding 6 gives us a 14 stature. So we're quite strong and we're quite big. So combined, we should end up with a good strength like we wanted. Now our intelligence, which is not not going to be a huge deal for us, but it would be nice to have a smart character. It wouldn't be too bad. We're not going to get a smart character because we rolled a 4, a 4, a 2, and a 1. I've seen that 2 and a 1 before. Taking away the 4, we end up with 7. And education. This is where we're sliding. So we're going to roll this, subtract the 4, and then we're going to average between what we roll and 0, which could give us a very low number. At the very best, if I roll all 6s, we're going to only end up with a 10. And I did not do that. We rolled a 6, a 4, a 3, and a 1. So, taking out 4, we have 10. And with a 10, average out between, well, 10 and 0 is 5. So we have an adjusted score of 13. Agility is 7. Constitution is 17. Stature is a 14. Intelligence is 7. Okay. So what we ended up with is a character who does not have a lot of brains and not a lot of education, which kind of fits where we were shooting from. His clumsiness is unfortunate, but okay. He is, however, built like a brick house, and he's going to be quite strong. So, yeah, we can go with that. Your strength. Oh, wait, we should total these up. Totaling these up actually helps in the later run. So, 13 and 7 is 20, 30, 37, 41, 51, 58, 9, 63. 63 total. Now, again, we have 6 stats, and the average of those stats is a little bit above 10. So our character is a little bit above average. The brains drag him down a little bit, but his physical capabilities are not bad, so we'll go with that. His strength is his fitness plus his stamina. So fitness plus stamina, rounding down. 13 and a 14. Oh, it's going to end up being a 13. So, hit capacity. This is how much punishment he can take before he starts getting all deadified. His head can take constitution damage, which is 17. He's got a thick skull. His chest is his strength plus constitution plus stamina. All these physical things that we have good numbers on. So 30, 44. His chest can take a beating. Now, of course, it only takes a couple of bullets to ruin your day, so... All other body parts, constitution and stamina. So that's 17 plus 14, which is 31. The game tracks 7 different locations. You have your head, which, if that gets taken out, it's all over. Your chest, which has all of your favorite organs in it, but it also has the most protection with your ribs and extra meat, and there is some space in there. So your chest actually can take more punishment than anything else. It's designed that way. And then you have your limbs and your abdomen, which all have the same amount of health, which is they can take more punishment than your head can, but not as much as your torso. Your throw range is double your strength. So in this case, that's 26, and that is the number of meters that you can chuck something. Very important when you're throwing grenades, or if you're out of bullets and all you can do is throw rocks. Your weight is 4 times your stature. So that's 56 plus 40, 96. And that is kilograms. So I am hefty. Husky boy. Big muscles. Load. This is the amount that you can take. 2 times your strength. So that's 26. Plus your constitution. 26, 36, 43. That is kilograms. So my character can carry quite a lot without having undue encumbrance, which is useful considering vehicles may not be reliable. We may be carrying all our possessions on our back at some point. Military experience base. Your military experience base is how long you've actually been in combat for. How long you've been in the military for. This is kind of something that averages out a weak character who would have spent more time in the military and a character with a lot of potential with really high stats. Turns out it's kind of an equalizer. So I rolled pretty well for my stats, so I'm not going to have as many skills, I suspect. 120 minus your total of 63 is going to be 57, divided by 7. Okay, 57 divided by 7. 7 times 7 is 49. 63. Yep. Okay. 9 times 7, so that's a military experience base of 9. You would round down. So, yeah, 63 divides into 7 9 times. Time in months in combat is your military experience base times D6. This is a number representing experience. It's determined by subtracting the basic attribute total from 120 divided by 7. Got that. And time in combat in months is determined by rolling a number of D6 equal to the military experience base. Oh, okay. So I have to roll 9 6-sided dice. Okay. And we are going to total that for the number of months that he was in combat. All right. So we have 10, 5, 4, 3, and 1 is 10, 13. Okay, 6 and a 4, that's 23. Plus 5, 28, 29, 30. And we have one more. So it's 34 months in combat. Oof. That feels like a long time. All right, number of rads. Everybody starts out with a little radiation, since the military people are often on the front lines where, close effect from some of the bombs have been dropped. Everybody gets a little. In this case, it's again the number of MEBs, or military experience base, that you have. And that is, again, a number of D6s. We're going for low numbers here, and we're not getting them again. So 6, 6, and 5 is 17, plus 3 is 20. So 3, 3, and 4 is 30, plus 2, 32. And one more. 33. Okay, we have 33 rads. So this is one of those things where if you have a high number of rads, you should probably stay away from areas that might potentially be radioactive. My character definitely should look into a Geiger counter. Okay, coolness under fire. This is a number that basically tracks how some people tend to hesitate under fire. And it's a kind of it has a lot to do with how much you've been in combat. You can become a bit numbed to some of those effects. And it's largely also going to determine how much time you have to hesitate and how many actual actions you get in a given scenario. So in this case, it is 10 minus 1d6 minus the time in combat divided by 10. Okay. So 10 minus 3, so 7, minus the time in combat divided by 10. So the time in combat is 34 divided by 10 is 3. So, and rounding down, so that leaves us with a 4. coolness under fire rating. For the record, that's not great, but it's not tremendous. Tremendously bad, at least. Your age equals the time in combat divided by 12. Now we start getting with the fun math. Okay, so your time in combat divided by 12. So how many years you were in. That would be 2 years and 10 months. Yep, 2 years and 10 months. Plus your education. Oh boy, I'm going to be young. Okay, so and I'm assuming you just round that down. Yeah, we're fine. So this gets to be a little arcane, so you can bear with me to a bit. We have 34 divided by 12, so that's 2 years and 10 months. Plus education, that's 5, plus 8, 13, plus n d6. N is... Okay. N is a number based on how many years he's been in the service. If it was less than 49, you roll 1d6. And if it was longer than that, then you roll 2d6. And if he has 60 or more months in combat, 3d6, 70 or more months, 4d6. Eesh. Okay. So I rolled a 4. So it's 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 8 is 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I'm 19 years old. And depends on time indicated. Oh yeah, here on this table. Yay! It's a good worksheet that has all the tables you need rather than referring to the book. Okay, Army and nationality. U.S. Army. United States Army. Nationality American. All right. And nationality is American. Native language. All characters receive a 100% skill level in native. Okay, well, I speak English. American. With 100% fluency. Yay. And going into the tables, and yeah, there's other tables too. We have several different languages we could also possibly learn, which is Spanish, German, Italian, Polish, or Yiddish. There's percentages for each. 10% of Spanish, so if I roll anything other than a 0, it doesn't matter. So 6, I don't know Spanish. If I roll anything other than a 0 for either of these, it doesn't matter. German, 2% chance. 9, no chance in heck. Italian, 2%. Ooh, there's a 0. If I roll a 1 or a 2, I know Italian. Nope, 9. Polish, 1%. Another 0, nope. And Yiddish, another 0. No, roll an 8. Okay, so I only know how to speak English. That's not terribly surprising, all things considered. And that is in the player's charts at the end of the referee's handbook, which took me a second to find. Officer, yes or no? Yes, if your intelligence plus your education is greater than or equal to 2d6 plus 16. Yeah, well, I don't even get up to 16, so that's not happening. No. Big capital letters, no. Rank number. Rank number is your time divided by 10 plus n. So, time divided by 10 again is 2. We're in for 26 months. Or 3, sorry, 3. 3 divided by 10. plus n. So 3 plus n, and n is on table 2. And we roll. A 1 or a 2 minus 1, 3 or 4, 0, 5 or 6 plus 1. 1, so it's a 2. Rank, consult table 2. Rank 2, specialist 4. Specialty, consult specialty table and roll 2d6. We have a specialty table. Yes, we do. We are going Ranger. And we roll 2d6. Okay, in this case, again, the table is fantastic. What we're going to do, it lists options available and the die roll or higher on 2d6 need to be accepted into that specialization. If they failed, they can attempt a different specialization, but they suffer a modification of -2. If he fails again, then he has to choose a specialty in the support services branch. Okay, so I want to be an infantryman ranger. I need a 7 to do that. If I fail at that, then I can have an option of heavy weapons, but I would need to roll a 5 or less. Yikes. And if I don't get that, then I'm stuck in support services. I would have a choice between aircraft mechanic, vehicle mechanic, or electronic specialist. So I'd basically be a mechanic, because I would flunk out of Ranger School, which, okay, they fixed this in 2nd edition. Basically, this comes down to good luck to see if I can get what I want. If not, I'm going to be forced to play a grease monkey. So, this is what we're going with. Let's try. I rolled a 5 and a 4, and I'm accepted into Infantryman Ranger. Okay. Okay, service branch, infantry. Oh, okay, specialty is infantryman. In the U.S. Army Rangers. The benefits of the specialty. Alright, that is... Infantryman, required constitution. Again, this is going to involve me jumping around a bit, which... Yay. You must have a score of 12 or higher in the list attribute. I have a 17 constitution. I'm good. Not a problem there. That was for either one, for infantrymen or heavy weapons. So CRM, which is close range melee, is 20. We have heavy weapons, 20. HW. BC. Not sure what BC is. We'll figure it out. BC is body combat. That's unarmed combat, I'm guessing. BC is half cost. RCN, I'm guessing that's recon. Yep. Half cost. Our forage, FOR, foraging, I'm sure. Yep. Half cost. Alright, that's what I get for being a ranger. Cool. Alright. The group is going to roll for vehicle, so I don't worry about that at this time. Skill points. Military skills is your military experience base, which is a 9, times 40, which is 360. Education, education, which is 5 times 20, that's 100. Background of 300. And all right, so assigning skills. As with most modern games, skills are your most important things. They are really what determines what you can do. And as technology has advanced further and further, your skills are actually more important than your physical attributes in many cases. If you can shoot somebody with a gun, you don't need to press them over your head. But if you don't have bullets in your gun, then being able to press them over your head and slam them in the ground becomes useful. That being said, let's see. We have those 3 skill points, and we are going to take a short break here while I calculate my skills for this character. I will explain my justification for everything as we go in just a moment. Please stay tuned. All right, welcome back. We've just spent out a bunch of points. We had 360 points in military, 100 points of education, and 300 points in background. And skills are bought on a 1-for-1 basis. Each one of those points is 1% of a skill until you get up to 50. Then they count double. Those all, they were a huge amount, basically, to sort through the different skills, which are all on a table. And they're all abbreviated. So I will give you a quick assessment on what we ended up with. We have CRM. It turns out it's combat rifleman, not close range melee. Combat rifleman, I got 20 points for being a ranger, 20 for basic training, and I threw in an extra 70 points in military to give me an 80 skill, the best you can start out with. My character can shoot like nobody's business. MC melee combat, base of 20. I threw 50 points of military into that to give me a total of 60. The first 30 brought me up to a 50, and then the extra 20 brought me up to the 60. BC is body combat, that's unarmed combat, and it only cost me half my points. 35 points brought me up from the 20 that I started with up to 60, so my character's pretty good in a fight. Wheeled vehicle driving, 40, I did not increase that. That's not going to be my character's main thrust. There's a lot of abbreviations here, so I have to refer to the table. TW is thrown weapon. Base of 20, I upped that to a 50 using my military experience, so I'm good at throwing knives and grenades. Swimming, I used 30 background points. My character swam in the local swimming hole at the farm, so he's got a 50 skill in swimming. I figured because of some of his background, he might have picked up some Spanish from some south of the border farmhands. So I picked up 20 points using background points. With 300 background points, there was a lot to spend. Heavy weapons, I got for being a ranger, 20 points. That's all I put into it. That's not going to be his thing. So he can grab a machine gun and fire with it, but he's not fantastic. Recon was a big one. He had half cost for recon, so I brought that up to a 60. That is your stealth, as well as the ability to spot ambushes. Cost me 35 military experience. Foraging was also half cost. I also spent another 35 to give me a 60 in foraging. So that's for finding potable water and shelter and food and things in the wild. CB, combat engineering, what you need to do things like camouflage. It costs double. It's a complicated skill, but I put 60 points of military experience into it to bring me up to a 30. MCY is motorcycle. My character is pretty good on a motorcycle. I spent 70 background points to give him a 60 in motorcycle. So he could be a good trick rider, but it's enough. That'll be his primary thing for traveling away from the group to scout. Scrounging, 40 background points got me up to 40 skill. Again, finding other useful things besides just food. PST is pistol. The ability to shoot a pistol. That's something you're not trained in the military, according to this. So I put 50 points into that, so I'd be okay with the sidearm. SBH is small boat handling. So if we have to cross some water, I can grab a small boat. 20 in skill. If you don't have skill in something, you really shouldn't try it. So I can at least do the basics on a small boat. FRM farming, I put 40 of my background points into that. I came from a farm, so you can't help but pick up a few things. So I have a 40 skill in farming. That's basically for adding some character. But in the wilds of the post-apocalypse, that could come in very, very handy for something to do after the shooting is done. HB is hunting bow. My character can use a longbow to shoot things, mostly for hunting, but if arrows are reusable, when bullets aren't always reusable. So 30 points gave me a 30 skill in that, and that was for my, I used points for my education. That's what his homeschooling got him. CMP is computer. That is something that I used, I believe, military experience for. You can get it from any branch, but he's got a 30 in computer. He's not really good with them, but he knows how to use them. SCO is scuba diving. I figured as a rangering thing, if you're going to go into the water, it's good to know how to use scuba diving, so he's at 40 on that. Mountaineering, as a background, again, Montana, they have mountains. I'll give him a 45 there. Parachuting, I gave him a 30 in there. Airborne Ranger, sure. So he can do that to some extent. Not fantastic. It's not going to be his first option, but he can pull a chute when he needs to. GS is gunsmithing. He can maintain his weapons and patch up broken weapons. 25 skill from military. And electrician, doing things. I figure for somebody who can get behind the enemy's attention and cut wires and things, it's good to know which wires to cut, so I give him a 25 skill in that. That sum total was 300 background, 100 education, and 360 military. So yeah, that was a bit of work that I did behind the scenes. But it's a shopping list, basically, of getting all the useful things. So my character now has those numbers down. Body combat damage. Again, this is how much punching damage I can do to somebody. So it's your strength plus your stamina, or strength plus stature, I am sorry. So your stature is really counting double for this. Bigger fist means bigger punching. Strength plus stamina is 13, or stature, 13 plus 14 is 27. Times your body combat divided by 200. Okay, I have a 60. 60 divided by 200. Point. That's 20 divided by 6. 0.3. Okay. Interesting. So we will then 0.3 times 27. Just want to make sure I'm getting the numbers and everything right. Body combat damage. So they should have had another set of parentheses there. So 27 times body control. I guess it works out that way. Anyhow, body control is, or body combat is 60 times 27. My great math skills. Okay, 1,620 divided by 200. Move that over. 8. Okay, 8 body combat damage. So, yeah. I inflict 8 plus 1d6 damage when I punch somebody. That'll put a mark in somebody, certainly. With a single punch, I do as much damage. I do more damage than your average round from an M16, I believe. So that's a great way to finish people off. Base to hit numbers. This is the point where I am going to regret not having a calculator. So I will be right back after a bit of math. Stay tuned. And we have our completed character. This is going to be Ranger Doug Montana Stith, Spec 4 rank in the U.S. Army, Ranger, American nationality, and 19 years of age, infantryman in the Rangers, 96 kilos, 13 strength, 7 agility, 17 constitution, 14 stature, 7 intelligence, 10 in education. No. 5 in education. Beep. My bad. Not that smart. Coolness under fire of 4, 33 rads, 43 kilos in load weight, 26 meter range. Hit capacities have all been filled in. Skills have all been listed down so that I can easily reference everything. Base to hit numbers, I can be in really close range and have my full skills. Otherwise, if I'm out range increments, the numbers drop off. Short range is 0.6% of your initial skill. Medium range is 0.3. Long range is 0.1%. So try not to do that as much as we can. Body combat damage is 8 plus a d6 in combat. Equipment, we ended up settling on getting 2 vehicles for myself, a pickup truck and a motorcycle. This is in addition to whatever the group ends up getting for any kind of military vehicles. I'm going to have to be bumming off of the group for alcohol to run these, however, because I did not get a still for myself, so there wasn't the money for it. Got basic tools and small arms tools to maintain gear for myself and other folks. 2 kilo radio so I can communicate back with base. An aqualung in case there's any water operations. In terms of armament, I have my trusty M16, but I also picked up a .45 automatic pistol, pump action shotgun, and a bayonet and a knife. A flak jacket seemed like a good idea. And we also add our fatigues, combat webbing to carry everything, and a rucksack. So that is the total gear. Left me with $5. I'm also going to have to, I'm assuming that everything starts off with at least a clip. Otherwise, I'm going to have to be bumming off ammunition very quickly. That scrounging skill could come in very handy for that very soon. I'm going to be relying as much as I can on getting up close, however, with this hefty combat damage. Interesting to note, skills have absolutely nothing to do with your attributes, so if you're really, really quick, it doesn't help you with your shooting. Everything is percentile based, which is very easy to understand, very simple. Coolness under fire is a little high, unfortunately, so we're going to have to hesitate if we're going to be doing multiple things in a fight. Combat is broken up into half a minute, broken up into 6 segments of 5 seconds each. And with the 4 rating, I'm going to have to hesitate several times under fire before I can do all the different things I want to do, unless I just stand there and just keep shooting at a single target, which may happen too. As far as rads, I want to stay away from radiation as much as I can. I don't have as much of a resistance to that as some people who are fresh to the field. But yeah, this is a completed character sheet. We had to go through the worksheet here to finish that off. Calculated out our cost expenditures. And this is what a first edition character sheet is. Fairly bare bones and fairly, it's interesting. You could tell this is an early role-playing game. The percentile system was used by several systems because it's easy and robust. Modifiers are simple to slot in, and you can increase numbers. You just raise the percentages. You're looking at probabilities. Fairly simple. You have a X% chance of succeeding. With the advantages of Constitution, all of these numbers got very large, but obviously I can take some wounds, but I don't want to get shot any more than anybody else. My character's various weaknesses. I'm going to be relying on the group fair amount. I'm going to be mooching until the advantages of foraging and scrounging get me some appropriate gear. As long as I can keep my truck running, though, I can easily carry everything that I've got, including the motorcycle, which can fit in the back. And my character is pretty much strong enough I can heft it up into the truck if I needed to. But, plank to roll it up into the ramp, into the back is no problem. I would have liked to have bought some more ammunition and things, but I didn't. So that will be a challenge going forward. But this is my character, and I look forward to working with my fellow GMs and telling a fun story with this character. I'm going to have to make another character in case poor Doug dies. I think my next one I'm going to try to make an officer and see how that works. It takes a little while, but the setting is fascinating for any of us who lived through the Cold War and for anybody who likes alternate histories. And yeah, I will hopefully in the future be able to give you a better detailed description of gameplay and my proper review on Twilight 2000 First Edition will be coming eventually. Also, for Part 2, we're going to make a character sheet, and we're going to make a character for Twilight 2000 Second Edition, and we will compare and contrast the two. And there you have it. We now have a complete character for Twilight 2000 First Edition, and we're prepared to go to war. What has this taught us about the game itself, going through this trial and making a character? Well, we can see some of the early gaming roots where making a character was a lot like a war game, picking and matching different skills and abilities to complete the value of a particular character, and it was all very random. It required a worksheet to make out the character rather than just a scratch sheet to put things on. Obviously, this is not highly optimized, as later games eventually realized that's something that players like. There are some people who will enjoy tangling with this character generation procedure. I'm not one, typically, and I know that very few people who get into role-playing, the vast general populace, won't be. One of your initial attributes is completely used just for a derivative second attribute, which is strange. Not terrible, but the fact that you completely will then disregard that attribute beyond it is kind of a little unusual. A character with a lucky roll, like I did in Constitution, can, with the right gear, conceivably take multiple gunshots and do pretty well, especially if you're fighting from a distance. The game, however, is brutal at close range. No matter what kind of body armor you have, you're going to go down if you start getting shot. And no matter how healthy you are, but at least my character has a little bit of a buffer from a long-range shot. As far as what is on the character sheet itself, you've seen me go through all the torturous math and everything, and not so torturous. It's not terrible. It's not doing quadratic equations and much more than, fairly straightforward math. And that math is fairly well explained in the player's handbook. But when we come to the actual character sheet itself, it's very bare bones. Again, fairly common for early role-playing games. You have your basic attributes, which don't impact your skills at all and are rarely going to be referenced in a game. It's mostly so that you have a concept of what your character looks like and how to role-play the character. And from everything I've seen, I looked through the rules to see how much of an impact abilities and attributes have, and it's not much. This game is about your skills, your skill selection, and the levels thereof, and your gear that you have. But we'll get into that in a second. As far as, combat, it's broken down to percentages, and the percentages aren't extremely high. My character is as good as you can get starting out in shooting a gun. And with that, my percentages still aren't excellent for snapshots. I can't go blowing people's heads off, for example, even at close range. I need to stop and aim to have a very good chance of hitting. Also, I didn't see a great deal about having a defensive actions of dodging in the rules as I read them. But this is, again, more about what I can see on the character. There's no defensive skills, for instance. The best one is probably recon, so that you can stay in stealth and hopefully not get shot at. Abbreviating all of the stats, or all of the skills, is cumbersome. I know eventually you'll get to learn all of it as second nature, but it made it tough for the first time of making a character. Eventual things that they give to the player, shortcuts and in-game explanations, definitely smooth out the experience. For what we have here, it's kind of raw and rough, but when we get to the second edition, I'm sure it'll be a lot better. As far as a percentage-based role-playing system, it's almost one of the earliest ones out there. You roll percentile dice, you see if your number is lower than your target number or equal to it, and you succeed if you make it. If you improve your percentages, congratulations, you've improved your chances of success at whatever you're trying to do. As far as gear goes, the core game is quite minimal. They have an okay selection of weapons. They have a couple of military vehicles. An okay selection, again, especially if you have a particular time and a place in mind to set your game. It's going to be very, very tied into that narrow window of time in the 1990s. Although there are still a few familiar things for people who, are battle tanks, or some of them are still in service and such, so some of those numbers haven't gone completely awry. And of course, they give you a very, very basic selection of gear that everybody starts with. If you are in the U.S. Army, for example, you have fatigues, combat webbing, your Alice pack that holds everything, your harness, a rucksack to carry stuff on your back, and a personal combat weapon, which can be anything from a saw, squad automatic rifle, which is a big shooty machine gun, to a pistol. It's all on your choice. The average person is probably going to take an M16 as it's a good weapon across all ranges. Some people like submachine guns, and so on and so forth. You're given a large amount of cash and then a very bare bones list of things to buy from. And depending on the scenario you're in or what have you, you may have fairly limited options on what you get. For example, the game master for the game I'm playing has not said that my decision to buy a truck and a motorcycle for my own use is outside of the bounds of what would be appropriate. So we're working together and have come up with a good idea for it. But the character there's no real mention of a lot of the role-playing of it. There are nice little character stories and bio-asides for each section, outlining what the experience for some of the player characters might be like in the game. But there is extremely, extremely limited amount of experience in terms of roleplay and the mindset of a soldier, what they're taught, what is covered in basic training that everybody should know. The kind of little tidbits that helps a person play a character. There's also very little about unit organization, again, probably leaning on supplemental materials. And with just these rules and the sample adventures on there, a person can pick up and play a game that will be a bunch of ex-soldiers who are doing whatever, possibly going along the storyline from the preset adventures. Or maybe you're just going to create your own post-apocalyptic, Fallout-esque game. This game does not have the gloom and doom, nuclear devastation, the whole world is broken output. Generally, the idea is that while certain things in civilization are gone, there's still an awful lot of countryside and people. The devastation hasn't been as bad as some people have warned it could be. Which, as long as there are cats around, life will probably be alright. almost everything in the book that I've seen, as far, especially the player's handbook, is all about the challenges of the world. And now we have our own war cat here to give her output. What do you think of Twilight 2000? She seems to like it. And that's about all I have to say. The game itself is a brilliant imagining of a time period that not a lot of people think about anymore, but as, you know, political situations kind of rear their ugly head again and again, especially with the current status in Russia and our relationship with them. Who knows? We could all be grabbing our helmets and getting off to the local salt mines to try to weather out another nuclear winter threat. Who knows? I look forward to playing this, mostly because of my faith in the game master and the players that I have around me. As far as the game itself goes, it'll have its charms, I'm sure. However, if I had my choice from what I've done through here, making a GURPS character, pulling out the high-tech book, and just coming up with scenarios would probably be easier and potential for more rewards down the road. That doesn't mean that's what we're going to do. We're going to play this classic game and all learn to appreciate it with all of its warts and all the good things that make it unique. And I'll let you know how that goes. This has been my character witness. I'm Rob, and I will see you in the trenches, with or without magic. Thank you, and farewell.